So welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking the time in your day here to come to our workshop. A couple of housekeeping things we're going to go through first, and introductions, and then we'll start in with the agenda and all. Right. So, Mark, maybe the next slide. So just briefly with our safe harbor notice, right? Today's workshop is really designed around all the functionality that's available right now. We may, in the Q&A, we may discuss some future functionality that could be coming. Again, this is to the best of our knowledge that we know right now, but given priorities and business plans, that could change. But the majority of this information is all going to be around capabilities that are available right now. Next. Just a few housekeeping things to go through. First of all, is we're asking that we're going to keep everybody on mute here just to be able, we got a lot of material to get through. We're asking everybody, if you have questions, please put them in the chat as we go through this presentation. There's other folks on the team from ServiceNow that'll be able to answer your questions in the chat, right? And then at the end, we'll be able to open it up to where we'll be able to have a Q&A session at the end, right? The session is going to be recorded. If there's a part that you get that's missed, or if you'd like to go back and review, it's going to be available on the ServiceNow community page. That'd be under the SPM community page, right? There's also going to be a toolkit out there to where you'll be able to take that with you, right? So that's where you're going to find your toolkit, and Mark's going to explain that more. And then after a session, you'll be prompted to take a short survey. We appreciate your feedback, so this way we can make improvements going forward. Next.
So I'll introduce myself. I'm Mark Casto. I'm a Principal Product Success Manager for the Strategic Portfolio Management, formerly ITBM product group. And my specialty is APM. So I'll be presenting to you today, and I'm joined by my manager, Tony Panaleo. Tony? So today, what we want to do is there's people with various practices. But there's a lot of customers out there who haven't yet gotten started. So we want to give you information and a toolkit to help you get started with a minimum viable application portfolio practice. And our hope is that we can show you that there's value in just getting started. You can quickly get to a degree of value, and then as you mature, of course, you get more and more value. Our agenda today, we'll do an overview of what is APM. So for people that are new to it, not familiar with the product, we're going to give you a quick review of it. You can't talk about APM without mentioning CSDM, Common Service Data Model. So Common Service Data Model, we're just going to give you a quick introduction. There's tons of information out there on Common Service Data Model, but we want to show you how it ties into APM. It's the backbone of it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how to realize value, how to get that early value out of it. And it's just a suggested approach. Hopefully it'll make sense to you. And then we're going to get into the real meat of this program, which is how to set it up and how to start and build an inventory. This is where we'll be referencing that toolkit that Tony was talking about. We've built and provided you several things, including printed guides and videos that lead you through setting up APM, building the inventory. Next step, part of our value equation, is measure the inventory. If you want to improve something, what do you do first? You measure it. So we talk about that in a simple rationalization process. And then we're going to talk about some more advanced possibilities, demands, capabilities, and a roadmap, how to mature your practice, and then at the end, we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. Again, put your questions in the Q&A, and my peers and Tony are all on to help answer questions, and then we'll also discuss at the end. So we want to start off with a quick survey. So we have a poll here. If you wouldn't mind, if you could provide us an answer, and all we're looking for is, are you doing application portfolio? Yes, it could be with a spreadsheet. It could be by any means. You might have another commercial tool. You might actually be using ServiceNow already, and you're here to learn more. Again, this program and this session is for everybody, but we really want to make sure that if you're just getting started and you're thinking about it, we want to give you something to make it easier for you to get started. And thank you. Looks like a lot of people are just beginning. That's wonderful. Thank you for joining us and considering using APM. Give it another moment. The second question in the survey was this one: where are you? And everybody's responding wonderfully. All right, and just a couple more minutes, another minute maybe. We appreciate you filling in the poll. It actually helps us to develop more content like this. Okay. We'll end the poll. We'll talk about it there at the end. But looks like 45% are just beginning their APM journey. And again, thank you for joining us today. So let's talk a little bit about APM. Application portfolio management it's not a new concept. In fact, it's been around since the 60s. People started keeping a list of those key applications, and the word application is really horrible because it has so many different meanings. You ask any set of people, you're going to get as many different answers as you'd have people. But the idea of this system, this system that provides value, and there's so many other words, value streams, services, etc. All of that plays into it. It's been around since the 60s. 90s popularity grew, and some of the founding principles were done in the 80s, but in the 90s, as Y2K approached, it became very popular and the tooling started to grow. So application portfolio management, enterprise architecture began to move from spreadsheets and pictures drawn on stuff into dynamic tools and automation. And ServiceNow, to be honest, we were a little late to the game, but we have a really strong offering. We have something that others cannot do because we have so many facets of your world, your enterprise, in the ServiceNow platform. And we're going to show you how all of this connects together. So what is application portfolio management? It's managing and optimizing what we call business applications. You also hear me call them enterprise systems, trying to get away from that application word. But there's questions you want to be able to answer with something like with an application portfolio management practice. What applications do we own? What's out there running and who owns it? That in and of itself is our first value proposition. That's important. If you don't know that, IT's running around blind trying to find out who owns this system. Which applications should we invest in? There's the next level of it. Where do we spend our money? How do these applications align to the business? We do that through the business capabilities. What are the critical services that are at risk due to technologies? So one of the things that we want to do is align those enterprise systems, business applications to the technologies, and where are we exposed for risk? What information do we use? So application portfolio at its center, we have that inventory. And with the inventory, we have things like artifacts. And this is speaking to ServiceNow's application portfolio management. We have the inventory at the core of it, artifacts, the tools and facilities to help with rationalization, tools and facilities to help with governance. We provide an information portfolio so that you can align your applications to a logical set of information that the application uses. That starts to play into risk evaluation and those sort of things. The business portfolio. What are your business capabilities? Business capability is what your organization does. So you want to be able to align your IT tooling, the things, the systems that are running to the capabilities, and so that you can understand what's being supported. You can decide what your key capabilities are, helps you to know where to invest and where to worry. Technology portfolio, again, that's that technology bill of materials or architecture that that your applications are comprised of. And then finally, technology reference model. This is a new feature as of Tokyo. You can define the standards for your organization, declare what can be used, what should not be used at the version level. The key use cases that we support, you see app inventory there in the middle, but you want to be able to maintain that application. So data, that's a process that you'll introduce as you start this journey. One of the things you're doing is starting that process of maintaining that inventory. ServiceNow provides you tools to help do that. You want to be able to assess and measure that application inventory, align your technologies, align your business, the business capabilities, part of the technology dependency, and also other things you see aligned to ITSM activities like incident, problem, and change. That comes through the idea of taking this abstract concept of some application, for us, we ServiceNow, we call it Surf, but that's where we go if we need a new laptop or we need something else. And how does it map to the infrastructure? What happens to that? Where's that infrastructure deployed? All of these things are part of our key use cases here. APM, and especially the business application, what this diagram is showing is it sits in the middle of the ServiceNow platform, and it takes advantage of or participates with all of these different products. At the top, financial modeling for total cost of ownership. PPM, this is how we interact. Part of what APM, and we'll see another graphic in a moment, APM can help drive where your investments are, with the work that's ongoing, especially in IT. ITSM, instant problem, change, vendor management, contract management. All of those facilities start to connect and are part of that view of what is your application inventory doing. GRC, integrated risk and audits. ITOM, we talked about being able to map from that enterprise system, business application, down into its deployments and the stack of servers and deployed software and databases and all of the infrastructure that makes it up. Platform, we use things like surveys, assessments, service catalog, data certifications. And then finally, another one of the biggest interactions is IT asset management. Software and hardware asset management can be or are integrated with APM in our technology portfolio management, so that you can create that list. I call it the technical bill of materials. Here are the technologies that we use in this particular instance of this business application. So APM is a sponge. It's connective tissue sitting right there in the middle. This graphic is extremely busy, and we could spend our whole time discussing just what's going on here. Suffice it to say, is what we're doing is we're taking it from the front end where ideas, innovation starts to happen. It becomes a demand pipeline. This is where not only IT, but the business is figuring out, where do we invest? That includes the strategic roadmap, continuous planning. There's just essentially a system or set of systems driving work and investment. And it could be operations work, it could be new investment, epics, it could be projects, programs. All of these things happen to deliver outputs for your customers. One of the key inputs and one of the key things that's tying things together here in this green square, this is APM sitting here, and see how it's tied to the front end, but it's also tied to the back end. It's tied to, once these things are deployed and running, we have to manage the risk. We have to manage the services. What about incidents and problems? All of these things feed back into APM, and then from APM back into your demand and into the big software machine, if you will. So any discussion of application portfolio management has to bring us to the common service data model. If you've not seen it, there is a whole wealth of information on community and just about any site that ServiceNow touches. YouTube, you could find probably 100 videos on CSDM. This is CSDM4, and essentially what it's showing is the underlying data model. The key things that we're working with in APM are the business application. This is the main guy that we're talking about today. We've mentioned information, we've mentioned capability, and we're going to talk about it a short period. We talked about tying into infrastructure. This is the application service. So if I have the abstract notion of a business application, I have a deployment of it, we call it an application service. And then here in this extremely undersized box is the CMDB. This is a representation of everything that is running, be it in the cloud, a data center, wherever. These are the servers and network facilities, the infrastructure CIs, we call them. We have a consumer model over here. We're not going to talk much about it today. We also have the technical services that are providing not only the applications, but providing that infrastructure and supporting that infrastructure. So there will be plenty of sessions on CSDM. We're constantly having sessions about it. So follow with us. The thing I want to address here, though, because we talked about that horrible word application. So in ServiceNow in particular, application is something that's in the CMDB, and it's actually discoverable electronically. You can have probes, if you will, that'll find a server that's running maybe in the cloud or in the data center, and it can take apart that server, what's running on it, and it finds things like web servers, application servers, databases, et cetera, running on there, those become applications, singular, just application, business application. So in this, in our minds, this is the physical world here. All the way to the other extreme in the abstract is this notion of the business application. There's dozens, hundreds of them even. A typical enterprise may have a couple of thousand. One of the things you do as a part of it, and what we're going to talk about today, is rationalization. If you have 3,000, maybe you want to get it down to 2,500. Rationalization can help you with that. But rather than doing it down at this level where individual bits are installed, we want to do it at the high level. Here is this application that's providing customer relationship management, and we've got 4 of them that do the same thing. Let's rationalize and get it down to 1. We'll get rid of 3 and their associated expenses. Next is application service that we talked about. Application service is a deployment of our business application. So I've got a production deployment. I've got a development deployment. I've got a deployment on the East Coast and another one in the West Coast, just so that I get better service for the constituents on those regions. And application service, by the way, is made up of these guys, of the applications. So applications working together, the web server, the application server sitting by it, the database server, the middleware such as message queues, etc. All of those things working together, glued together, if you will, and supporting or making the application service is how it works. So, and it's very, very simple example. This is kind of pretend, rather naive, but we want to keep it simple. We have a business capability, email and collaboration. We have a business application, so happens we call it Exchange. We have a deployment of that business application called an app, and it's an application service. This is our Exchange production. It's got Exchange running on one system, running on this Windows server, server ABC. It's also using SQL Server. So we have a database server that's tied to it. We have a dependency line between these two. All of this is down in that operational area. When you think of CSDM, orange is operational. So here's a logical entity, but these are real things. You can put your fingers on them, you put your hands on them, you can shut them down, you can turn them off, you can throw them away. Again, these are the real things that are picked up by discovery or some means of discovery, kind of in the general sense. Could be ServiceNow's discovery. They're hooked together, they're tied together. They make this happen, which in turn is represented because we also have a dev instance, we have another region instance. All of them are tied together by the business application, which is in turn providing this capability at the business level, if you will. Another example that will come up, what do you do about SaaS? SaaS doesn't have any infrastructure. It doesn't have servers in a data center. It does somewhere, but you don't know about it. You're a consumer. So what do you do with these? Well, here's one we have. We're using Workday. Workday is what we use here at ServiceNow to schedule our vacations, put in our employee information, that sort of thing, change your address. It has a capability that it supports called employee management. Workday is the business application, and I didn't put the prod on here, but imagine that there is indeed a prod, because I might have a dev instance as I go through and model what I'm doing. I want to understand the connectivity. Another couple of things I've brought in here is the technical service. This is the teams that are supporting and providing Workday for the rest of the company. Another thing we see here is these other applications, because Workday has all of our employee management information, they use that information to do their things. So Workday is the source, and then these other application services are just dependent upon it. But guess what we've done here? If this guy is down, these guys are cut off, so we got a problem. So from this, we understand that dependency. So now we want to transition into what I would call our value proposition for this session. How do you get value out of APM, out of application portfolio management, and how can you do it quickly? It can take, honestly, years to mature a full-blown application portfolio practice, but you can start getting value rather quick. First and foremost, just having that list. I don't know about everybody. Myself, I lived through the 90s in the Y2K area, and there was a mad rush just to understand who owned these systems. That just having that single list, and time and again, we see people will do it with Excel, they create a SharePoint site, it's all fine. But if it's not centralized and managed, things start to fall apart. So having that single source, that has value in and of itself. You establish the processes to intake, maintain, and even retire these business application records. And then you begin to measure. What we're going to introduce today is that very quickly you can stand up and start to measure. It is subjective measures. Objective measures are a more advanced subject, and we'll cover them in a later session. But a subjective measure of business value and technical risk, that can in turn give you the foundation for doing a simple rationalization. And maybe you don't include all of your applications, you just get a percentage. Maybe it's some key applications, maybe it's applications from a single department. There's all kinds of variations on the theme, but hopefully the idea makes sense. Once you have those evaluations, you can rationalize. We use demands. We're going to talk about that a little bit to indicate a business case for it. You can do that all in the system, and it can be very efficient to making a program that can run this kind of stuff. So this is kind of a simple guide to that, getting to rationalization. Establish your inventory. We're going to talk about tools for doing that. I've provided you in the toolkit a template and also a guide on how to set up APM and how to import that template. See the toolkit for the import template. Business value, technical risk. The toolkit is going to cover it. We're actually going to watch some videos here in a moment about these things. Then you rationalize the inventory. We'll talk about the tools in ServiceNow. There is actually an analysis facility that allows you to rationalize that inventory. And then once you've made a decision, you create a demand, a business case. You might create multiple business case, and then you pass it on to the next step. You evaluate the cost and implications. This is just the same thing, but we're writing out the steps. This is a very busy screen, so I'm not going to read it all to you. But we discuss here, this is part of your takeaway, maybe part of the toolkit, if you will. What is your approach? Establish that inventory, define your minimum viable assessments. We use business value and tech risk because it's very popular. You may be familiar with Gartner's time model. That's what we're doing with this. The steps to it, we describe it. Get your attributes, get it together. We'll show you how to import, and then work with your selected team to build the inventory, load it in, and start to establish that process of intake, registration, doing assessments. You are introducing new process to the organization, you have to face a small amount of organizational change. Now, you could do it all yourself as a small team, or you could start to distribute it. In the end, the best model for success is distributing the pain, if you will. The IT owners of those applications, the business owners, there's the ones that have all of the information. And filing value statements, that single source, the ability for IT, business, everybody to understand who owns that application, who do I need to talk to if there's a problem, or I want to maybe get some data from it, those sort of things. Foundations for strategic planning. Remember the big software machine we were looking at. It's a foundation for integration into that. And then understanding, one of the key things that we ask for is this categorization. Basically, what kind of app is this? Is it a BI tool? Is it general ledger? Is it financial management? That's one of the ways that quickest ways that you can get to subdividing your inventory so that you can do your rationalization. Now we want to talk about getting set up. Setting up APM, pretty easy. It's stated in 3 steps. Install the plugins. If you're not familiar, as an admin, we have things in ServiceNow we call it a plugin. It basically installs the application. There's a single plugin that you use for APM, and we're going to demonstrate it here in just a moment. Create at least one group. In this proposal for minimum viable, then there's a half dozen different roles, maybe even more if you look at advanced processes for APM. But we're talking about starting simple. One group is all you need, and this APM analyst role is all that you need to assign for it. And then import your inventory. So we're going to start here with a little video rather than relying on, and I'm going to make sure sound is turned off. So this is just a video showing how you can set up and initialize APM. Here we've logged in to APM. We're logged in as an administrator. You've got to be an administrator or have your friendly platform admin with you. And you go in and just in the nav search, type plugin. Once plugin comes up, type application portfolio. You could type the whole thing. I usually type application ports about as far as I go. And there you'll see the green one. It's kind of wraps up 4 different apps together. You can install the 4, but this is nice. Just click on this one and install all 4. So when you click the install, if you're installing in a non-prod instance, and I do recommend that you start in sub-prod instances, it's okay to load the demo data. Don't ever load the demo data in production. You want it clean. But it's nice to let you load that information. It helps you to see how things work, to have some examples, and you can always go and remove them. Some of our tools in ServiceNow, it's rather hard to get rid of the demo data, but for APM, it's not too bad. This is going to be short in the video, but it takes 20, 30 minutes for this thing to run. So it's a good time to go get a cup of coffee. You could also click the run in background I was showing there. So now APM is installed, but you need to be able to get in there and use it. You need to have users for it. So we're going to create a group. Again, this is an administrator function. We'll go to the groups, and we're just going to create a single simple group called APM analysts. That's the top level role in APM. And you can do everything that you need to do with APM, except for these kind of steps, with that role. And what we're showing here is you'll go and you'll search for the system role, starts with SN underscore APM, pick analyst, move it over. And now you add group members. So if it's just yourself, you add yourself. If you have 2 or 3 people helping out, add whoever makes sense. And you're now ready to go. And in this case, I use the impersonate, but in the real world, whoever you've added to that group, you would have them log in. And so I demonstrated essentially logging in as that user, and I go to the APM homepage. So next is importing business applications for application portfolio management. Again, both of these videos will be part of the toolkit, and there's some write-up documents that go with it talking about it. So you've got good, strong guides. So we set up APM. Next thing, I've provided you with a template in the toolkit that lets you use either just a small set of information, or you could fill in everything, but you can fill in your application inventory in the spreadsheet. And then this is going to show you at least one method, a simple method for importing that information. Again, this is an admin function, or you'll need help of an admin with you. But it assumes that you started off, and here we see the template, and I've created a couple of test applications. In this case, I only want to go as far as the status. I want the description, I want the category. I need to get the IT owner and the business owner and the status. Is it in production? Is it in something else? Once I have that, what I was showing is you right click on the header in the list view and you say import. Import will actually let you build a template. I've just provided a template with a little bit of value add to it for you. But once you select your Excel and you say upload. So what it'll do is it'll upload it, and it uploads that Excel information into a temporary staging table. We call it a import data source. Then the next step in this process, you preview the imported data. And I didn't drill into those, but if you drilled into 0 and 1, you would actually see the imported data. Once you're satisfied, you click complete, and it loads your applications. And here we see our 2 applications loaded, categories set, owners are set, etc. So very quickly, and end to end, that was just a few minutes. Probably in the real world, you would be not so quick, but in a day, in an afternoon, you could have an inventory built and you could start to work with it. That's a possibility. So now we have our inventory and that's in place. What next? If you're going to improve anything, you have to measure it first. So we want to talk about application portfolio rationalization. So ServiceNow, in our training and all sorts of other good content will be in the links that are being provided to you. It's also going to be in this deck, which you'll have available, and it's also going to be on the community site. We have a community page for this particular session. There's also one on the 30th. And so all of this will be referenced. But for rationalization, we define this process. 5 steps: identify, measure, evaluate, decide, take action. Identify, that's building your application inventory. Measure it, you start to measure it, and you can do it start off simply, and as time goes on, as you mature, your ability to measure and the tools that you have available, that grows and matures, and your measure becomes more accurate and more detailed. You then evaluate your results. Based on those results, you decide what you're going to do, and then we use the demand facility to create a demand. A demand is essentially a business case. So from demand, we can say, I need to do this. I need to enhance this application. Here's the business case. Here's the cost. Here's the resource requirements, etc. And then decision makers, executives, whoever it is going to make the decision on this can decide, yes, we support this demand. The demand then becomes a project, could become an epic. It could become a story if it was that small. There are all kinds of potential endpoints or results from demand. So the scoring framework, this is just kind of showing you how this scoring and measure framework, we call it the scoring and indicator framework. So we have indicators, metrics that we gather, and there's all kinds of different metrics. We're going to go into that. One type of them is using assessments. And then we score these indicators against either the applications, the business applications, or the capabilities. We'll talk about more about capability in a while, but traditionally under capability, people, process, technology is how you evaluate your capabilities. Business application, we'll start off and we're demonstrating subjective measures like business value, technical risk, business fit, those are kinds of things, but there's also operational evaluation. How many incidents does this thing pick up? How many changes? How many problems? P1 incidents? Those kinds of things can be counted against as measures or key metrics against your application portfolio. So the process and the scoring, this is an overview. What are the key things? So application scores are a weighted sum of your indicator values. So we have all of these various indicators. The indicators have a variety of data sources. We're going to talk about that next. You set it up to run on a viable or reasonable frequency, not every day. Most likely every quarter, maybe every month. For example, operational metrics, you might gather every month. How many incidents do we have this month? But other things like one of the things that's possible is total cost of ownership. If you have cost values that you can bring in, we gather those and we trend our costs, and costs might break down in various ways. We can trend a variety of things. Again, the scoring profile, that's the mechanism where you say, use these indicators. Here's the weighting for that indicator. It calculates a score. There are 12 out-of-the-box indicators in APM. The data sources that we can use are assessments. We're going to demonstrate that today. Performance analytics. There are some performance analytics metrics that are already being gathered by your system. If you're using ServiceNow ITSM, we can take advantage of those. Performance analytics in general is a source that we could utilize for these metrics. Custom script. With a custom script, you can do just about anything in the platform. You, of course, have to be aware of performance, but suffice to say, through a script, you could get to anything, which that means you can crawl that CSDM model, data model, to find information about something associated through several hops to your business application and calculate a score based off of it. Query condition, that just lets you use an attribute on the business application or capability table as something to gather for your indicator. And then the indicators, as we mentioned, we can take multiple indicators and roll them up into a parent indicator. So for example, we might have indicators individually for incident, problem, and change. We can sum those together and just have a operational indicator that sums the little individual ones. That's the kind of use case for that. So then a scoring profile that wraps it up. And the idea is what we're doing is developing a single apples to apples evaluation. And by apples to apples, meaning one application, no matter what it is, we have a uniform way of scoring it. So I could be satisfied that I am doing a rational comparison between two applications or multiple applications. It's part of making an accurate rationalization process. So these individual assessments, they are become indicators. The indicators are wrapped up into this scoring profile. We're going to see all of this for real in a moment in a video. Once you look at it, there's a part of APM, there's two facilities in particular, group analysis. We're going to take a look at that next. And then application 360 is just a dashboard that shows you the indicator values and you can watch your trend. This is an example of our rationalization tool. So imagine you gathered all of these various metrics and you can create and configure. This one is an out of the box one. It's tech risks versus business value. This is the Gartner time model. Here we have, and by the way, there is one, I guess, oddity. A score of 10 is good, a score of 0 is bad. So the highest tech risk in the organization will be down here at 0. And my demo data, when I took the screenshot, didn't have any red ones, but the bad guys, the ones that have no business value and they have high technical risk, will be down here in the lower left corner. In the upper left corner, maybe they have high business value and as you can see, these two are kind of middle of the road on business value. But if you're back over this way, you've got high technical risk. Our very best applications, the one we might consider investing in, they have high value and they have low technical risk. Hopefully that makes sense. So now a video on setting these things up. This is going to be a quick summary. We have a complete video, but it's over 20 minutes long. We're working on hosting for that complete video that steps you through the full thing. But this is a summary of how to configure your assessment, run the assessment, send them out to the IT owners, gather indicator scores from the assessments and generate an application score. So we start off, and all this is, by the way, is also documented. There's literally a PDF that takes you step by step. So to work with it, you need to change yourself in scope to the application portfolio management scope. So you have to have at least admin or some developer privileges so that you can do that. You then go to the administrative section and locate the application indicators. Here's those out-of-the-box indicators we were talking about. In this case, we're going to use the business value one for our example. You see we have several here. Drill into the business value assessment indicator. And you see it's composed. You see it says assessments, the metric type, that's the assessment. The category is also business value. We drill into the category. The category is where we keep the questions. Out of the box, the assessment has one question that says, how likely is it that you would recommend this? We're going to add a new metric. You see there's already one that's been added. We're going to add another. So we go to our toolkit. In the toolkit, I've given you some example questions for business value. So you can copy from that, or you can make up your own. And now you click new to add a new metric, paste your question in, and have to get rid of the bullets there because I cut and paste. Again, paste the question in is the name. The name is just for referencing the record. What is shown on the screen will be the question. Field type, we want to use a template called NPS, Net Promoter Score. The indicators work best with this Net Promoter, and it just gives you a rating, 1 to 10. So we save that, we got a new metric. So we've configured our assessment, cleaning up the name there, get rid of that bullet. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our indicator. Now we're ready to launch our assessment against our inventory. We clicked on Generate Assessments. Here I can filter which applications I want to send the assessment to. And in this case, I'm sending it to just to this guy, Able Tutor. Or that's how I'm filtering down to Able's applications. I'm also saying by user field, this is who is going to receive the assessment. It turns out it'll be the same person, and I launched the assessments. Again, all of this is documented, it's step by step. So this is just a summary example. Now we're going to go and here impersonate Able. In real life, you would have whoever is assigned, they would log in and they'd have an assessment. When they come in, they go to all, they're in the nav view, self-service, and go down and they'll find assessments and surveys. Here we see the business value assessment. Able had 4 applications, so he sees 4 different sections with the questions for each application. So he goes in, fills them in, and submits the assessment. The assessments are the data source, if you will. The values that come from those assessments is what the indicator is going to pick up. Now we go back, and so we've done the assessments. We have to generate the indicator scores, metrics, and also generate the score for the applications. So we do that by going to the application score. And remember, we talked about that. And so in this case, in the document, you're going to see that I recommend that you zero out everything except for business value and technical risk. Just make them 50%. In this demo, I did not do that. There I was generating the scores for fiscal period FY22. And then you go back to nav menu. We go to the indicator scores. I filter, and we see, for example, ServiceNow APM had a score of 9.1. That's based off of that assessment. You'll notice that all of those indicator scores, and now we're going and looking at the actual score. So that's the score that is summed up from the other indicator scores. So summary of steps on what we just did and also what's in the toolkit. Configure your questions in your assessments. We demonstrate and recommend business value and technical risk as 2 good starters. You could use any assessment that you want. I include links on how to create completely brand new assessments and indicator pairs. Generate the assessments and send it to the recipients. Let them take their assessments. Once the assessments are complete, generate the indicator scores and the application score together. And the video demonstration of full will be available on the community page. We'll have links to it as soon as we find hosting for it. So next, that leads us to our stretch goals. What we've just covered is a minimum viable APM practice. You established an inventory. You've got it under management. You created assessments to measure that inventory. And we talked about using group analysis to be able to do rationalization. So now we're talking about capabilities. So capabilities in demand is kind of our next level of maturity. We have these applications. Category tells us technical function, kind of what it's doing, but how do we associate it to the business to get really big value? We want to be able to lead ourselves into that strategic planning and strategically look at investments. How do we tie it in? So we do that through business capabilities. So what is a business capability? Our full definition is the ability of an organization to do its business activities. It's the ability, the word capability. Business capability mapping to the applications. The applications are, think of it as the IT tooling. And so in the world of business and how things work, you have a capability. A capability, that is what you do. Business process is how you do it. And business process is lightly treated in APM. You can't create business process records and associate them. It's only singular. It's a bit of a naive implementation, but it is possible. The business process is how you do it. The tooling, the systems that are used in those processes to make that capability happen, that's your business applications. And we look at it not at this thing installed on a server, a piece of software, like something, essentially on your laptop. No, you want to look at it, the bigger picture. This is Office 365. It provides these capabilities. This is Workday. It provides all of these capabilities for employee management, et cetera. That's the level that we want to look at it. So again, we're at that enterprise system business application level. You also establish between the business application and we're talking about CSDM, you establish a link to the application service, those deployments. If you understand the deployments, you understand technical risk from technologies, technical debt, that kind of sort of thing. It all rolls up through that chain. Imagine in your mind that picture. You had the blue at the top for the design domain, business applications, capabilities. Down in the words, you had the application service at the center of things. It's through that operational statistics metrics roll up. So business capabilities in ServiceNow, of course, we have the general lists and that sort of thing. What we do is we load them, business capabilities, and I call it a business capability model, because it's a model of what your organization does. They are traditionally a hierarchy. 3 is kind of the magic level for me. It's easiest to manage. But I've seen people start as simple as a list of 10 capabilities, very high level, and they associate to those 10 capabilities. And then as time goes on, they add the next layer, the second level, and they move their application associations to something a little bit more detailed. You can literally grow it out organically that way and grow your capability model. It is providing you that ability to be able to say, here are the systems, here's the things that we do that are supported by these systems, and start to do your strategic evaluation, planning, all of that against that information. The capability map, it allows you, it incorporates the yearly planning cycle, the physical period, because what we're doing is we're giving those scores. Remember, we talked about capabilities. Out of the box, we measure on people, process, and technology. Again, in the toolkit, we'll have some recommended questions for those. Out of the box, we don't have questions. It's for you to configure, but you'll have the ability and the know-how to do configuration for these. From here, we can create demands and we can view the applications associated. So this gives us that hierarchy view. It gives us details about the capability and what is supporting it, the business applications. So over the years, and I've been at this for over 20 years, by and large, the most popular place to go and find an enterprise level capability model, something to start with. Because the first thing you think is, surely on the internet, I can find something to help me bootstrap this. Well, we've always recommended APQC. APQC is a nonprofit organization. Their goal is they provide, they're all about business process, but guess what? Their first level processes, category, process group, and process also make an excellent starter set of capabilities. So we tell people, go to APQC. They have processes for a huge number, maybe not every, but for many of the most popular, most industries. So you can find an industry specific capability model, or you could start with just their generic cross industry one. So taking those and preparing those capabilities, at least down to the third level. And here's some examples: develop vision and strategy, develop and manage products and services, market and sell products and services. These are things that all of us do. Manage IT, manage financial, manage human. This is stuff that every single organization in the world does. That's why this is so popular. And part of the toolkit, we don't have a demo of it here, it just simply takes too long. We're going to provide you with a in the toolkit a guide on how to go find these APQC capabilities, load them into a template, and then load them into ServiceNow, and then align them, hook them up to your applications. So the next part of it, so you have this idea of capabilities. You've aligned your applications to how they support the business. You've got the ability to rationalize, at least at a simple level, by category. What does the application do? Who owns it? What does it score based on business value and technical risk, and maybe any other thing that you've configured in your metrics so you can measure it. Our next step in this, and this is a very simple facility that's immediately available, is to create a demand from the business application form, from that capability form. There's another facility that we're not covering today, but we'll kind of mention it in a moment. But the technology portfolio, from technology portfolio, just about everywhere you go in our APM product, you can create a demand. You can create that business case to say, based on what I'm seeing right here, I need to create a demand to, we're going to go do this thing or that thing. The demand includes an action, so we can improve usability, retire an application, enhance an application, merge an application, et cetera, et cetera. So you can express the actions. By the way, the actions are configurable, so you could have any number of actions defined to suit your needs for driving capabilities. You give it a name, and you see here business applications. You can associate one or more business applications to this demand. So now what we've done is we've taken that inventory that we've created, and we're now incorporating it into our investment and strategic planning. We've immediately crossed that boundary into the world of strategy and work and investment. And it becomes valuable information. If we're building a new system, if we're retiring a system, all of it can start here with the demand. The demand allows you to build the business case. It allows you to find your cost estimates, your benefit estimates. You can evaluate your risks, your issues, actions, decisions. You can define requirements, and you can have even tasks to drive process around developing this demand. It itself has a formal process for approval. Once it's approval, if you happen to be a customer that uses ServiceNow SPM, it will naturally feed in and create a project. The project can be an umbrella for agile activities. So all of your agile execution, that's great. If you have an umbrella over it of this what we call a hybrid project, you can also have what we see so typically in the world is in the beginning, you have this setup and planning and budgeting and all of these things. They're essentially in a waterfall, but when you go to execute, you do it agile. And you might even use safe, but at least you're using some form of agile, and you can incorporate that. ServiceNow SPM provides you that visibility all down. Now, that's a subject for a different day. In fact, my peer Scott Wallace, in a few days, I think after the holidays here, will be presenting. Actually, it's next week. We're presenting on our alignment planner workspace. I encourage you to join that session as well. So we created demand. Once you have your demand, you have projects. From going back to APM, what can I do? As the IT owner, I want to know what's going on. I've got a one-stop shop. That's this visibility component. If you're using ServiceNow's SPM, even if you're not really executing with it, maybe you use somebody else for project management. Maybe use somebody else's product for your agile execution. We have integrations that can bring enough information back in so we get that ability. I can have this application roadmap that shows me as the IT owner or some other can come in here. I see all of the projects. I see the costs. I see when their state, what's happening with them, percent complete. I can look at a timeline view. I don't have a snapshot of that, but it's a Gantt chart like you're used to maybe with Microsoft Project. So we've gone from create the inventory, measure that inventory, align that inventory to what the business does, create actions to go and address, maintain, and make things happen, and view what the activities, all with a really simple start. So what happens next? As you establish that process, one of the things I'm showing here, this is more about just setting up, maintaining, using APM. There is APM guided setup. It's under application portfolio management, administration guided setup. It is a one-stop shop for everything that you might configure, load, etc., for application portfolio management. This is a tool to use when you first start, perhaps. It is also a great tool to use throughout your APM journey. So part of that maturing is you start to use, remember in that first slide where we're showing all of the things that APM does and how it incorporates. That's part of your maturity journey. So we define our maturity. So we talked about rationalization maturity. That was one facet of it. But overall application portfolio management maturity fitness, well, we call it the fitness level, but it's a maturity journey. you start off with that basic inventory. We talked about today, we've given you some tools shared with you that maybe can help you get launched. So you get the inventory in place, you establish those processes for maintaining it. You bring it all into one place. So you got it under, that's those processes coming together to manage it, certifications, that sort of thing. Next, you align the business, just talked about it, the capabilities, understanding how these technologies, these IT tooling supports the business. You begin to rationalize. So you see, just in today's talk, we've covered parts of, maybe not all, but parts of the first 4 levels of the 5 fitness levels. And then finally integrate technology and business functions. So we'll talk a little bit here in a moment about, technology portfolio alignment. But this is the 5 levels. Today, we've covered parts of basic maturity in the first 4.
Mark, just a time check. We got 15 minutes here.
All right. Thanks, Tony. We are getting close. I'm going to not cover all of this. This is just some of the metrics that you want to look at and the value statement. Again, you'll have this, so I'd encourage you to take a look at this. This is not all. What I do want to get to is an example roadmap. This is an example that we share with customers as we help them implement. And you see in the first phase, establish the inventory. Maybe even, towards the middle of that first phase, start to align capabilities. CSDM starts the day that you start APM. Assessments, assess it. See, that's early on, establish that. And then you grow your assessment capabilities as you move through the phases. Alignment of ITSM, that's actually going back to that assessment. So you have to have that model from the business application to the application service, and through the application service, you can align to ITSM activities, use demand to drive change. Technology portfolio, again, that is where we can align the technologies that are used. Well, we call them software models. They include the vendor support life cycle, so manufacturer support life cycles. And you can evaluate not only what is this application comprised of, but what is the risk due to things going out of date? Where's my technical debt? Introduce application cost, TCO, again, another advanced subject, and enterprise artifacts. So as a part of the Tokyo release, you can attach diagrams, you can create charts in Lucid, generate them. You can use other systems to attach diagrams. And that concludes the talk. I do want to do a bit of advertisement here. Our SPM Evangelist program. If you love what we're doing with ServiceNow, if you want to help, if you want to be a part of it, reach out to us. This will be included, but this will help us to grow the products to better serve you, our customers. That's what this is all about. But we need people to stand up and be evangelists. Help us to understand what you're doing, help us make it better, help others to know how they can benefit the way you have benefited. And we'll make sure you guys can see this. Bear with me one second. I'm going to pause share. I'm going to copy this link and send it to you guys. And Tony, I'll put it in the Q&A. If I can actually get to it.
Actually, it's already been posted in the Q&A in chat a few times.
Okay. Thank you, Molly. Thank you.
Yeah, I have, and also our other moderators has helped us.
Okay. So it's in the chat. All of this will be if you just honestly, if you go up and on the community and search for application portfolio management, start your APM journey, just look for start your APM journey. It's the only one, or search for toolkit. You will find it. And one thing I would ask of everybody, leave your comments. If you got follow-on questions, that can be our homepage for this session. We've got another workshop that we're going to present on the 30th, same content. So you don't, if you want, we'd be glad to have you. But if you are interested, we're going to post answers to questions. We're going to post more material. This will not be the last time that we do this. So that's it for me today. Other questions? Oh, I see. Satoshi, you've got a question. We're using services as applications stored with the CMDB CI service table. That is, first off, that was the prescriptive advice from ServiceNow before APM was ever built. It is not too much trouble. It's a migration. So basically you would migrate to the business application table, specifically CMDB CI business app, and start to use it that way. And it's that way then you can free up services to be what they intend. A application supports one or more services. It's that IT tooling side of it. So services and applications, some customers, some people believe all you need is the service. That's okay. I personally believe having that representative for the strategic planning and its tie into strategic planning and representing it different from the service, because service offerings, a service and the service offering, those things can break down and they can utilize different applications. They may utilize several applications. So it is a bit of a challenge, yes, to move everything from business service into business application, but you can do it a step at a time. You've also got to move your processes and your reporting. There's consumers of that information. I personally believe there is value for it.
Hey, Mark, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. We're at the bottom of the hour here. We want to be mindful of everyone's time. I want to make everybody aware that if you go back to the ServiceNow events page, we'll be hosting kind of meetups that occur. We'll be covering on APM, Application Portfolio Manage, for meetups. Feel free to sign up for those. And we want to thank everybody for their participation here today. Please take the survey when we're done. We want to hear from you and see how helpful this is. Mark, any parting words?
Just thank you, everybody, for joining today, and let me know how we can help. That's our job, is we're here to help you.
Absolutely. And Molly, Luis, thank you for participating on this also.
Absolutely.
Everyone, have a great day, and thank you for joining. We hope you found this helpful. Thank you.